Hello and welcome. Is the relationship between Israel and America rock solid, as Secretary of State Hillary Clinton says, or did Israel's recent decision to build more settlements mark a turning point? That's what many are asking after diplomatic tensions grew between the two allies, largely because Israel's announcement to build hundreds of homes for Jewish settlers on Arab lands in Jerusalem were announced during a visit by US President Joe Biden, and it was seen as a slap in the face for America's administration. President Barack Obama tried to make Mideast peacemaking one of his top agenda items last year, but those efforts stalled on the issue of Israeli settlement construction. The Palestinians are fearful that the more Israel builds in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, the less likely it is there will be any land to talk about. The two sides were on the verge of resuming indirect talks when the Israeli government publicized its project to build 1,600 additional homes in the Arab side of Jerusalem, dampening hopes for the peace effort. Meanwhile, the head of the U.S. Central Command, General David Petraeus, warned that America's deep support for Israel has much wider implications and undermines Washington's interest in Iraq, Afghanistan and Iran. So today we ask, how unsettled is the relationship between America and Israel? And is this so-called diplomatic crisis hype or reality? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. You can send an SMS or an email, and we'll also take your phone calls on the show. On that topic, we speak with Rami Khouri, a Palestinian journalist, Palestinian Jordanian columnist based in Beirut, from where he joins us. He's the editor-at-large of the Daily Star newspaper and the director of the Issam Fares Institute of Public Policy and International Affairs at the American University of Beirut. With me here in Washington, D.C. is Martin Indyk, a former U.S. ambassador to Israel and currently acting vice president for foreign policy at the Brookings Institution, a leading think tank based in D.C. And we also have with us Avi Issacharoff, an Israeli journalist who covers Arab affairs for the popular Israeli daily newspaper Haaretz. I welcome you all to the show. Ambassador, I'll start with you, sir. The Secretary of State Hillary Clinton says rock solid. How much you see just having to paint a sort of good picture of what's a pretty bad situation?
Well, she was addressing a red meat eating crowd of 7,500 pro-Israelis at the AIPAC convention this morning. So naturally she was going to stress the ties that bind the United States and Israel. I think those are real. But she also had some tough love messages for them that were about the latest incident that you described in your intro, in which she made clear that she's going to call either side if they do things that are going to disrupt the process of negotiations that are just underway. And I think the organizers and the supporters of Israel heard her, just as I think that the Prime Minister and the government of Israel have understood that now they have to be very careful to avoid provocative acts in Jerusalem that can spark a crisis in U.S.-Israel relations.
Avi Issacharoff, it was pretty bad timing, the announcement, obviously, with Joe Biden being there. So I wonder, how are the current tensions being regarded in Israel itself?
I think that the general feeling in Israel is that actually this crisis is behind us. It is right that in a way the Americans got what they wanted, and now we can continue on, because tomorrow there's a meeting between the President Obama and our Prime Minister Netanyahu. And I think that those pictures tomorrow from this meeting, of course, will serve our Prime Minister Netanyahu and will say, yes, we're behind this crisis and we can proceed on to the peace process and, of course, to what I want to do and what I want to achieve as a Prime Minister. I think that if we would follow the polls in the next week, my guess is that at the end of the day, Netanyahu will get more support.
You don't think he's being brought over to get his hand smacked a little bit here?
Well, that was the feeling the first couple of days of this crisis, but then again, we're behind the crisis. He's going to get the handshake with Obama, and then at the end of the day, I think that most of the Israelis would appreciate what he has done in order to go to this reconciliation with the American administration.
Well, Rami Khouri, let me bring you in from Beirut. Good to have you with us on the show again. And I wonder, to what extent do you think that these current tensions have been a turning point? Of course, you know, you have the Arab world always wondering how long things could go on in the void with no peace process going on. With the current tensions, to what extent do you feel there might be a change in the relationship between the US and Israel that might actually mark a turning point?
Well, I personally think that this is a potentially really historic moment, and potentially because we have to see what happens after the smiles and handshakes in the White House. We have to see in the next couple of months what happens. We've got several clocks that are ticking now with the 4 months for the proximity talks. The Palestinians want to create a state in less than 2 years. There's the 10-month partial freeze that Netanyahu called in some parts of the West Bank. So there are several timetables now that people have to adhere to. But the skepticism in the Arab world is really intense, and this is a moment of reckoning for Obama. And people are looking to see what Obama does. But my sense is that this is really potentially important because the U.S. is starting to say that our security support for Israel is rock solid. Everybody knows that. But our support for Israeli colonization in occupied Arab lands is hurting the United States' strategic national interests. And army people, military people, the president, all the leaders are saying this simultaneously. This is unprecedented, I think, in this situation.
Rami, a quick thought. How much do you think Benjamin Netanyahu really cares at this stage? Or how important is it, do you think, that America does give him, to some degree, some slack at this point?
I think the Americans probably feel that a coalition headed by a right-winger in Israel is probably more likely to achieve a permanent peace agreement than a coalition headed by a centrist or a left-winger. But you need a coalition that has the vast center of the Israeli body politic. So my guess is the Americans would love to have Netanyahu change his coalition, but it's got to have a strong center-right component. I think everybody agrees with that. But Netanyahu hasn't shown clearly if he is a politician or a statesman. Up to now, he's shown that he's a politician, and a pretty good one. But politicians don't always make very good statesmen. We'll have to see. He hasn't made it clear yet.
Ambassador, there's a feeling that things are pretty much stuck in the mud because the players haven't changed. We've had Benjamin Netanyahu come around a couple of times. We've got the situation with Fatah and with Hamas. Do you see any progress? There was supposed to be indirect talks, but it seems everything's stuck. Is it a case that with these players in position, nothing will change?
Well, we are going to see indirect talks get underway now, and I do think that this latest crisis has created a better atmosphere for those talks. There's a settlements moratorium in the West Bank. I think the Israeli government will be very careful about avoiding provocative actions in Jerusalem. And so Mitchell will go between Netanyahu and Abu Mazen, try to get some clarity about their positions, try to build some confidence, and then get into direct negotiations. So there actually is a little ray of light at the moment. But that's precisely why Obama and Clinton lowered the boom on Netanyahu, because just when they announced this, he did something which seemed to blow it up. I think we're back on track now, but in terms of your question about leadership, it remains to be tested. Both these politicians, Abu Mazen and Netanyahu, are severely constrained by their own right wings, Hamas being the kind of extreme right for the Palestinians. And it's not at all clear that just the urging of the United States is going to be sufficient to get them to break the mold, to take on their opposition and to lead their people to the promised land of peace. So far they haven't, neither of them has demonstrated it. The whole idea of what Obama is trying to do is to put them in the situation where they're going to have to make a choice. Do they want to make peace? And are they capable of the statesmanship necessary for that?
I'll try to get back to Abu Mazen's situation in a second, but Anwar has been waiting patiently in London on the phone. Anwar, thanks. What would you like to ask?
Oh, hello. Good evening to everybody. Riz.
Hi.
Riz, I just have a comment and a small piece of advice, if I may. You know, what is in the last decades, we have been brainwashed by propaganda and from the media. Now the world is open to media. Everybody can speak. Things are coming out. I believe that APEC, you know, Clinton has changed her attitude within a week, what she said today. America is controlled by the neocons, the hawks, the Zionist policies, the economy. Everything is controlled by these people, and they are, invertedly commas, blackmailing the American government. Okay. Believe you me, it's not a matter of...
Anwar?
This is...
Yeah, Anwar, let me put this to Avi. There's a view among many that the lobby in America, the pro-Jewish lobby in America, pro-Israel lobby in America, is far more in control than it should be. That, you know, Israel's hand is steered largely by that. Give me the perspective from Israel.
Well, I don't think that this is the situation here. I cannot agree with this assumption. Other than that, of course, the Israelis are pretty much encouraged by this, the power of the pro-Israel lobby. But I cannot say that this pro-Israel lobby for itself is too much satisfied with the current policy of this government. So let us not be mistaken by that. Although Netanyahu is leading a policy in one way, I'm not that sure that the pro-Jewish or the pro-Israeli lobby in Washington is too much satisfied with that.
It was interesting to see that the lobby came out not in support of Netanyahu in this crisis, but in support of the idea that we shouldn't be having a public argument with Israel.
Oh, it's interesting as well. But I'm going to get Mohammed in from Egypt, who's got a comment as well. Mohammed?
Yeah, I'm hearing.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, actually, I want to shed light to the last poll made in America about the American voters' support of Israel, that it is getting drops, and it is now 58. This point is so important for Arab. I think the issue is that the Arab people can't afford this, use this point to get the Palestinian rights. There is a problem. Actually, there is a problem between Israel and America, whatever this problem amount is. But the Arab has to do pressure to get the rights by this crisis.
Mohammed, let me put this to Rami Khouri. Do you see any progress with the Arab side of the Arab lobby, if you like, in America? Do you see any signs that there could be anything among the Arab world to create more unity, to put pressure on America to make create some kind of change?
Unfortunately, no, I don't. And this is one of the great tragedies of this situation. While there is movement and tension and opportunity on the Israeli-American front, and even within the U.S. among pro-Israeli supporters, you now have different groups, the J Street and AIPAC and others, and the lobby is now discussed. The Israeli lobby is openly discussed in the United States, and used to only work in the shadows before. So there's all kinds of changes, but the Arabs are completely out of this, and the only major actors now in the region who are getting attention are the people who defy the United States, the Turks, the Iranians, the Israeli government, Syria, Hamas, Hezbollah. But the vast majority of Arab governments are quiet and pliant and acquiescent and pleading with the United States in an old strategy that has failed for 40 years. So this is one of the great tragedies of the modern Arab world, the total incompetence of collective Arab diplomacy, unfortunately. And others, people who are being defiant and assertive, are finding that they often have a better chance to get something done. And look at the U.S. negotiating with the Taliban, and the U.S. negotiating with the insurgents in Iraq, and the Kurds making friends with everybody. So there's a lot of new lessons being learned all over the region.
Sam in Montreal, your question, please.
Hi, sir. How are you?
Good, thanks. What would you like to ask?
I want to ask Mr. Indyk one question as a former ambassador to Israel. The question is, when we going to see a U.S. president stand firm against Israel when Israel stand against the whole world? Okay. You serve in Israel, and you know the Israeli, and I know them as much as you know them because I'm Palestinian. And when
okay, Sam, so that question's a very valid one. I'm going to get to an answer from the ambassador when we return from our break. We have to take a short break, but we'll continue with that discussion and an answer to Sam's question when we come back. Welcome back. We're discussing the future of U.S.-Israeli relations in light of recent tensions and the impact on moving ahead on the Palestinian-Israeli peace process. My guests are Rami Khouri, a Palestinian Jordanian journalist and academic based in Beirut. We have Martin Indyk, a former U.S. ambassador to Israel, currently at the Brookings Institution think tank, and Avi Issacharov, Arab affairs correspondent for the Israeli daily Haaretz. Ambassador, just before the break, Sam in Montreal there was asking about when is the U.S. president going to stand up. Let me put that also in the context of his General Petraeus saying that there's wider implications the way the U.S. is treating the Middle East. It's affecting Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, and everything else.
Yeah, I would urge Sam to read the transcript of Secretary of State Clinton's address to AIPAC today, because I think that she mixed a good deal of love with a good deal of toughness about the unsustainability of the status quo, the need to achieve peace, and her willingness to call out either side if they're not acting towards peace. And she underscored that it's not only Israel's interest to have peace, but it's America's interest as well. This is a language that actually was introduced by Condoleezza Rice when she was Secretary of State, that was in the national interest of the United States. And that's a language that we're now hearing. Now, if it's in the national interest of the United States, it's because of these larger, broader interests that we have in the region, from Iraq to Afghanistan to the free flow of oil from the Gulf, and the sense that everything is connected, and that forward movement on the Palestinian issue is going to help in our efforts to curb Iran's nuclear weapons ambitions and so on. So that sense of interconnectedness is very much there, and it does play on our concept of what's in our interest. If the superpower, the United States, has a national interest involved, then Israel, as the dependent, smaller power, needs to take that into account. That's the message that's coming through here.
Well, let's see what, just for the viewers, Sam and others who haven't had a chance to hear what Hillary Clinton had to say, this is what she actually did say at that AIPAC meeting.
The status quo is unsustainable for all sides. It promises only more violence and unrealized aspirations. Staying on this course means continuing a conflict that carries tragic human costs. Israeli and Palestinian children alike deserve to grow up free from fear and to have that same opportunity to live up to their full God-given potential. There is another path, a path that leads towards security and prosperity for Israel, the Palestinians, and all the people of the region. But it will require all parties, including Israel, to make difficult but necessary choices.
Avi, one of the issues, a lot of people, the cynics, say that while Israel is being given a chance to make these choices, there is that constant clawing of land and steps further away from any real peace process, because that dead time is an opportunity for Israel to keep consolidating its position there, and ultimately there's nothing left really to negotiate with.
Well, I do not see much of this dead time ahead of us. I mean, we are going to witness the renew of the negotiations, even it's those going to be.
We're talking about the period all the way up to now. We're talking,
yeah,
5 decades.
Of course. I mean, if you compare the situation in the settlements 10 or 20 years ago, of course it's remarkably changed. I mean, we have 300,000 settlers sitting on the West Bank and East Jerusalem lands. And of course it is a huge problem, not only for America to bring peace or for the Palestinians, it's also a problem for the Israeli people. I mean, this is my, of course, personal view, but point of view, but I think that the settlements are a problem for the people of Israel.
Let's get a call from London, and we've got Rabia on the line. Rabia?
Yes, hello.
Hi, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening to this discussion and to the debate in general, and obviously following the news. And I have a comment slash question. I feel that the whole premise of the debate is a false premise to start with. We discuss the issue of Israel-Palestine as if it's an issue purely of strategic and national interest to the U.S. and what is in the long-term interest of Israel. And to me, the question is, what is really in the long-term interest of the Palestinians? And in this case, I mean, in terms of the premise that they begin the debate with, there is no real recognition as a starting point of the reality that's there on the ground, the reality of occupier versus occupied, oppressor versus oppressed.
Okay.
And that is the reality that exists on the ground. Do we believe that we can actually achieve any progress, whether politically or on the ground, on the international scene, regionally or within Israel-Palestine, before this very premise, the reality on the ground is finally recognized?
Let me get Rami Khouri to comment on that. I mean, one of the things also, Rami, is that it seems there's no solid sort of consistent voice for the Palestinians either. The divisions within the Palestinians also has hampered the chance of peace.
Well, not really. I mean, they are divided, but they have been united many times before, and even when they had a unity government with Hamas and Fatah, the Americans and the Israelis completely ignored their approaches and their overtures for peace. So the division of the Palestinians is not the obstacle to peace. Rabia is right that there has been 40 years of consistent Israeli, American, international ignoring issues of justice, of international law, of UN resolutions, of equity, of ethics, and common basic human decency. And this is why the United States is now suffering, because it has lost not just credibility. Very few people in the U.S. respect or fear very few people in the Middle East respect or fear the United States. The United States is in a terrible situation that it has brought about largely by itself and by supporting Israel so heavily. And the U.S., even when it sends its army or does sanctions, people say, bring them on, and who cares? So there has to be a different approach, is the thinking in the United States now, because the U.S. is paying the price. And we're saying it shouldn't be Hillary Clinton it's nice for her to say that these are tough choices. I don't think that complying with international law is a tough choice. I think it's the right thing to do, and we would like all of the countries in the Middle East to do this, and that's the approach. Unfortunately, power doesn't work like that.
Okay, Joseph's in New York. Let's squeeze in a call from Joseph. Go ahead, Joseph.
Yeah, my comment actually pertains to Al Jazeera in general, which has been very critical of democratically elected governments like Hamas and like the president of Iran, and claim that they're actually dictatorships. Yet Al Jazeera runs out of a country that's a complete dictatorship. And when we see channels like Al Manar that are blocked in the United States and Europe, and Al Jazeera is on American cable networks, it becomes quite evident that Al Jazeera is actually a CIA Mossad operation. And I just wanted your audience to know that you're complete frauds.
Joseph, appreciate your comment. We'll take all the comments on the show to show that we are democratic in taking the comments. So I appreciate you calling in with that. Ambassador, just literally less than a minute to go. What's your view on how long America can continue this stand? I mean, Rami had some very valid points on America losing its credibility, and it can't continue like this. It's been too long. Nothing's really being done.
Well, everybody's lacking credibility. On all sides, I think, and Rami too quickly dismisses the divisions on the Palestinian side. They are a serious problem for Abu Mazen. He's got to worry about Hamas breathing down his neck and accusing him of being a traitor. He has to worry about whether the Arab states will support him. That's why he went to the Arab League and got that support just a couple of weeks ago.
The Arab League is seen as toothless.
Well, but in terms of gathering support from all sides for an effort to try to resolve this conflict, which is going to involve difficult compromises. The United States cannot do it on its own. It needs the support of the international community and the Arabs, and it needs leadership from the Palestinians and the Israelis.
I have to stop you there, but I thank you, and Avi and Rami, thanks for joining us and taking part in this debate.
Thank you.
We're out of time, unfortunately. Beginning next week, be sure to follow the show at our new time as we move 4 hours earlier to 16:30 GMT. That's at 12:30 p.m. on the US East Coast, 5:30 p.m. in the UK, and 6:30 p.m. in Cairo, which means 10 p.m. in India. Remember, you can watch a podcast of the show on iTunes. This week, you can download the debate on the future of the Falkland Islands, known as Las Malvinas to the people of Argentina. The issue of sovereignty is heating up now that oil has been found in the waters around the islands. On the next show, as more and more nations line up to buy American conventional weapons, we ask, is the US simply catering to supply and demand, or actually profiteering from war? Be sure to join us for that. We'll see you next time.